So after hearing all the critical acclaim for Parasite, I finally got a chance to sit down and actually watch it. And I gotta say, I was pretty impressed. For those of you who don't know, Parasite is a Korean film from Bong Joon-ho, who you might know from Snowpiercer or Okja, and is about this poor family who is slowly employed by a big rich family, and they soon get themselves into some deep trouble while being employed for this by this rich family. This movie was nothing like I expected it to be. It was very clever, funny, and intense, and actually pulled off all these tones pretty well. The story was very well constructed and was able to take you from lighthearted to dark and intense very quickly. The best way I can really describe this movie is that it feels like Get Out. Both mixes tones very well, and they both take a light tone and kind of slowly, progressively get to a dark tone. The casting was phenomenal as well. Everybody did a pretty good job in their roles, and they all elevated the material that they were given. They really made me feel for their characters, and they actually made their characters feel very human. So basically, the first half of this movie is very lighthearted and fun. There's a lot of humor, and you basically just spend time with these characters, getting to know them, characteristics, and just how they interact with each other before that twist into the second half where it gets more dark and intense. Where at that point you're kind of just worrying about these characters and kind of wondering how they're gonna get out of this without getting into some massive trouble. And also with that, there's the ending for this movie is really, really good. It's very intense. Things happen that you don't expect to happen. Even in the last few minutes, there are points where you're just like, "Oh, is this actually happening, or it's just, or it's not actually happening?" For those intense scenes, they are very intense. They really play off like a horror movie, even though this isn't a horror movie. They don't use any music. They pretty much rely on diegetic sound and pretty well camera work and lighting. Give it this dark and dirty uh, scenery. However, with that said, I do have a few flaws with this movie. Once you get past the setup, you kind of have an idea of where this movie is going, but there are enough twists to keep it interesting, so you're not just sitting there bored and like predicting everything that happens. Along with that, there are points where you just don't believe the rich family's gullibility. There are just things that happen, and you're just like, okay, I'm pretty sure a real human being wouldn't believe that. Like, how is this all happening within like a span of a few weeks? But they do make that a point in the movie a couple of times. They kind of point it out, but still, like, it still kind of nags me a little bit because, like, I just don't believe that would actually happen. There's also a relationship in this movie that doesn't really work for me. It just felt a little undercooked. I would have liked them to explore that a little bit more or just drop it because it doesn't really add much to the overall story. It's there from the first half, but as we get into the second half, it's kind of just pushed to the background and you come back to it like maybe like one or two more times and it doesn't really do much besides that. Last thing, there's a character that does introduce the main character to the rich family, and it kind of sets up the entire movie. Like without him, this movie might not have turned out the way it did. It's just like a way of setting up the story and kind of getting moving. It did feel a bit lazy, but it was just like them saying like, all right, let's just get this out of the way so we can actually move on to what this movie's actually about. And that's kind of a nitpick. Like I don't really have too much of a problem with that. It's just something I want to point out. But yeah, other than that, I really love Parasite. I believe it is one of the best movies of the year, kind of up there with Joker. So I'm gonna give Parasite a 9.5 out of 10. I really recommend this one, even if you don't like foreign language films. I believe that there is something special here. If you have seen it, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. And those are my quick thoughts on Parasite.